they had their washer and dryer and everything in this other part. And it was a long flight of stairs going down. It was quite elderly people that lived there. Well, they just shut the door going down there, called and wanted me to get up there, and they said they were watching Will Fortune when I got there in the living room. The bear was at the bottom of the house. And but they had sent a sheriff with me, a new deputy sheriff. And I wondered what it was. I called the sheriff, told him, hey, I've got to go in and shoot a bear. He won't leave. Every time they open the door, he wants to come out and get them. So he just taken over. And so they sent this guy out there, and it was a new deputy sheriff, and I soon found out. But he got there, they didn't even tell him what he was coming there for. And he gets there, and he said, I'm supposed to meet up with Jimmie. I said, well, I'm Jimmie. And he said, well, what are we doing? And I said, well, we've got a bear in this house, and we're going to go in and shoot him. And that boy, he was a young guy, and he started sweating. I mean, he was literally sweating and shaking, and we go in the house, and the older people weren't even going to go out of the house, you know, they were going to stay in. So I had a flashlight, shotgun, he had a shotgun, and he was shaking, and finally I could come to my senses. I said, you know what? I said, why don't you stay up here, and then I'll go down there, and if anything gets past me, then you can take it. Because I just knew if I went down there and that bear charged, that he was going to shoot me. And, so I went down, and I come around, and sure enough, I got in there, and I shined the light around, and I saw the bear, and he started pouncing. You know, they'll jump up and down on their front feet, gnashing their teeth, and then finally he charged, and I had to put him down. But that was one of the worst things. And then another, I trapped a bear in a culvert trap. I built a culvert trap. It's like a big pipe. It's 8 foot long. It's got a door that slams shut. It's got a food basket in the front. When he grabbed the food basket, it trips the lever that holds the door open. The door swings shut, and it locks. So I set it in this lady's yard, and she called me. She said, Jimmie, it was about 10 o'clock one night. She said, Jimmie, we've got a problem. I said, what's the problem? She said, we got a bear. I said, okay. She said, but it's a cub, and Mama's not happy. And I said, oh, great. So I got to go out there and turn this cub loose. So I go, and I get there. Sure enough, Mama's out there about 35 yards. She's back and forth. And the last thing I want to do is have to put that animal down. And so I've got a shotgun just in case. Believe you me, I didn't want to shoot this bear by any stretch of your imagination, but if it come between me and her, I can tell you who I'm rooting for. And so anyway, I get up there, and I get to the trap, and I unlatch the door, and I take the spring off, and Mama's just back and forth. I mean, she's just pacing back and forth, jumping and huffing and gnashing her teeth at me and everything. She's really upset. And the cub's not. The cub's inside it, got the food basket down in it and everything. It was happy as a lark. So I opened the door, and I finally got the door open, and the cub won't come out.
Of course.
And it's not coming out. It's sitting in there eating. And I think, oh my. Well, the front side, I welded a big piece of grating on it, so I could go around the front. And I go around the front, and I'm trying to shoo the bear out. The cub, it's not leaving. It's not going. And I mean, it's just going to stay there. So I go back to the truck, and I had a can of off mosquito spray. So I got that out, and I go back over there, and I spray it on up in there, and it didn't like that at all. It didn't like that off scent. But boy, it shot right out of that trap, and Mama and the cub went on up the hill, and I didn't have to do anything. So that was one of the more interesting. Yes, sir.
A few years back, I think within the last year or two, I saw an episode about wild hogs in the South.
It is. It is.
Is that?
They'll breed about 4 times a year, and they drop big litters, and they just take over. But yeah, and that turned into a bigger problem than what it had to be. People always think about making money for one thing, so they figured they'd just have all these hogs. Then they would just sell people hunts to go in and hunt these hogs. Well, there's no possible way you can keep up with breeding hogs to take the numbers down. And there's not anybody going to go in there and pay you that much all the time to do it. You'd have to have people turning around through there daily, several. Well, all of a sudden, then you get this big population of hogs, and they're just spread out everywhere, and they're actually just doing a lot of damage. And they got in. They really had to get in and get after those. They go in there and they hunt them down with helicopters and shoot them out. And I mean, but they still can't keep up with the hogs there. just totally take over.
What's the strangest situation you've been in, or strangest thing that you've caught?
Well, the strangest thing that I got called out on was that Reggie the alligator up here, the one they got in L.A. Yeah, but the guy caught it right before one of the park rangers jumped on it and caught it before I got up there to catch it. But that was pretty strange, and I talked to those people about that for quite a while. But some of the things that I do have to go after is mountain lions. Mountain lions are pretty dangerous. You have to watch those. I'll tell you, I've got 2 children that live out here. The boy's 12 and his sister's fixing to be 11, and they've been going with me since they were in diapers. They would go, as a matter of fact, when they first started school, I went to the first parent-teacher meeting, and my son's teacher told me, said, says, your son would come to school every Monday, and he would tell these stories at share time. And she said, I always knew kids have, wild imagination. She said, but your son was so, right on with the facts. And she said, so I finally got up one day at recess, and I went and pulled your card, and I found out he's not telling lies, is he? I said, no, he's not. He's been going with me. And of course, they didn't know. They grew up going to work with Dad. They didn't know that everybody's dad wasn't a trapper. So they go to school, and they tell the stories of how I let them wrestle coyotes with a catch pole or fox or something like that, or they love go with me when I'm trapping bear, but I don't let them go when I'm doing lion. That's about the only thing I don't let them go with. So.
What are they going to do with that? I just heard on the radio last week, I don't know what city it is, but there's a whole den of coyotes who basically taking over house. And the neighbors aren't very happy about it. But the city decided they weren't really going to do much about it.
Yeah, a lot of the cities don't, and what happened is you'll have a community that'll take care of it. San Bernardino County, I do the entire county. Now, the county actually pays for me to trap that entire county yearly for all their wildlife. So whenever they get calls, then I'll call them, and they send me a work order. It's faxed to me, and I get it and get it in my text as well. And then I'll call and find out what the problem. A lot of the people, like I said, it's something that shouldn't have to go after. I'll tell them I'm not coming out. There's no reason. Here's what you need to do for yourself. You need to clean up your brush, get your bushes cut above ground where you can see, and they can't hide in there well. Pick up your pet food, dump out your water dishes, do stuff for yourself. And then if you can, continue to have a problem, then we'll talk about doing something about it. But there's others that, they go in, they're attacking, or they're coming in, they're stalking kids, or they're hanging around bus stops, or, just a multitude of different things, that you'll have to go in. And believe you me, it keeps me really, really busy. But you'd be surprised at how much actually goes on around here as far as work I do. There's very few cities around here that I have not done work for. Very few.
I thought maybe you had gotten a call about that.
Where was it?
Yeah, just listen. I heard on KFI on Friday. Sure,
It was a condemned house that.
Yeah. That was up in around Glendale somewhere up there, I think. Yeah, I saw that lady up there. Yeah, they'll run those off. LA will go in there and run it off. I think they're going to tear that house down anyway. But they'll just run them. They'll relocate somewhere. But a lot of the cities that end up doing that. The one, some you probably heard on TV, the one in Laguna Woods that grabbed the ladies. I went in there and I did that stuff. I went in there and did a combination of trapping and shooting, got their coyotes under control. And then the cities next to them, and quite a few of the South County cities, and then right around here, Huntington Beach, Westminster, Los Alamitos, Rossmore, all over Swain Park. I do quite a bit for them.
Yeah, is that naval base? Is that where a lot of those critters live?
The naval base, it does. You've got quite a few in there, but I do the joint forces bases. I do most of the military bases. I do 29 Palms, March, the joint forces, just about all of them. I do. Believe it or not, our military is not into exterminating animals at all. They, you've got some people they need to go after. They'd be more than happy to do that, but they're not going to go after any animal.
Up in the San Bernardino Mountains, we've got a family cabin up there, and I've been up there since I was a kid. I've never seen bear. Well, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were up there, we saw a bear in our backyard.
Yep.
We've also noticed that the squirrels have disappeared out near Running Springs, Fridelda area. Is there a virus that had come through? Do you know anything about that?
Funny you say that. It had it just further down the hill from you about 3 years ago. It hit the plague, and that's probably what you got. You won't have any raccoons either.
I haven't seen raccoons.
Yeah,
We've had.
they get the plague,
Uh-huh.
so you want to watch out for that.
Okay, but as far as the bear, is
The
there
bear,
something we need to be aware of?
bears, they got one thing on their mind, and their world is this far apart.
Right.
That's how big their world is,
Right.
and that's from their nose to whatever they eat.
Right.
And that's it. But that's the problem with a lot of the bears. You're going to have good animals and bad animals, and I'm going to have to go get the bad ones, just like you have good people and bad people, and you have police force. But a lot of the problems that I've had to go after on bears was people going in there and they feeding them to get pictures. And then they'll feed them 2 or 3 days, and then they decide that's enough. They're not going to feed them anymore. Because usually people who go up and rent those cabins, they got all the pictures, and the bear eats a lot, so they're not going to feed them anymore. Well, the bear comes back, and there's no food. He knows where it comes from, so he'll just go in the house and get it.
Right.
And then I have to go after the bear. Or just something stupid that people do. I got called on a Memorial Day, Labor Day, one year, out here along the foothills. And what happened is that we just had a lady get, slapped around by a bear in a park. Need to get up here with the dogs, So we get up there and come find out what happened. The bear had come into this park, and it was a holiday. There was tons of people there, and they were all barbecuing. Well, the bear started on one end, and he just made his way on across. Well, he got to this lady, and she'd been had her head in a little bit too far in the jug that day, and she figured she was going to go get her food back away from the bear. And it didn't work out the way she envisioned it. So, but I didn't go after that bear. I said, you know what, some people need to be out of the gene pool, and that's prime example right there. So I took the dog and run the bear further up in the hills and told him that we couldn't find him. Yeah, but you run into all types of stuff like that. But the bears do come in pretty regularly.
Hey, what animals do you don't like to catch? Skunks or something?
Yeah, I don't fool with that too much. I got some cage traps, and I let my son, I let him catch raccoons and possums and stuff and all that. But if he wants to do it, skunks are all right. But you got to know how to catch a skunk, or you're going to smell like a skunk. I can promise you that. But yeah, I don't fool too much with the little stuff at all, unless they're giving me a problem. I've had to go in sometimes and trap raccoons out just for specific reasons, like trapping bear. I was baiting up a culvert trap for bear one night. I turned around and there was 6 raccoons in the trap with me. They're just waiting on me to get out of the way where they can get the food. And there's only one way out, and that's that way, and they get pretty feisty. So I have to trap those out, take them and move them somewhere. But we don't move the big predators anymore unless it's the wrong animal. A lot of people ask, how come you shoot the bear? Now, you may see us on TV, tranquilize him, put his shackles on, put blinders on, check his temperature, put him in the truck with a litter. When we take him up the mountain, we shoot him in the head. We're not turning him loose. When we quit doing that, about